Hello everyone, my name is Rishikesh Nari and we welcome you to our special series, The Economic Times Cutting Chai Stories, an initiative by EDH. Before we begin, let me set the context right. The Economic Times Cutting Chai is a series of candid conversations where we take you through the inspirational journeys of influential people. You all have seen these personalities in the corporate world, but we are taking them away from that boardroom drama for some time to have some candid thoughts with us. So today we have with us Mr. Abhishek Trigunait. He's the CTO of ZS Associates. So, Mr. Trigunait, thank you so much. Thanks for your time because it's very challenging to get spare time, especially when you're working from home. So, thank you so much for that, and thanks for your presence on this conversation. So before we get into any other introduction and the formal part of it, let me just ask you the first important question that how was your journey in 2020?
It's been a mixed bag, like all of us. Of course, there's been a little bit of a roller coaster, I would say, both professionally and at a personal level. Unfortunately, at a personal level, like many of us, either somebody near and dear or somebody or a friend of a friend has been affected by COVID. Unfortunately, that's the life or the days we are living in right now. So from that standpoint, luckily, nobody very close to me, but definitely somebody that I knew professionally or a friend of a friend has been affected. So that's left a little bit of a harsh feeling about 2020, I would say, because of the COVID. Professionally as well, I think it started a little bit of, as I said, a roller coaster when we started up on a high the beginning of the year with all the plan and everything else in place, and then of course COVID stuck, and then things took a little bit of a downturn because everything just went on the hold. But then later on, thankfully, we are in the life sciences industry largely with ZS, and life sciences is doing well in the name of doing better for humanity through our vaccines and disease therapies and so on. So that's when the business sort of continued to pick up towards the later half and the last quarter of the year. So we ended 2020 on a good note, and of course hopeful for a better 2021.
Okay, now enough for this formal introduction, because this was the reason I asked you this. I don't want you to think about last year, professional year of 2020. Just take away from, just get away from it, and we'll discuss about your childhood. It's a drastic jump, but we have to take that. So please tell us about your childhood. How was your personal life when you were doing your early years of schooling, and what were your hobbies? Just take us through.
Sure. But did you want me to go back to that 2020 question? And
no, that's perfect. No, you just start because it was a good opening. Now we'll edit it. It's a good opening.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so regarding my childhood, I was very blessed, very fortunate to have been born in a house in a joint family setting. So I had tremendous love and care, and I was the eldest one, so that takes it one notch up because there's no one else to share that. So I was very blessed. I was born in a small place called Dhanbad. That's a mining town in Jharkhand now. There's a point in time it was in Bengal, then in Bihar, now in Jharkhand. So that's where I spent my early childhood. My family has been in the coal business for over 3 centuries, I would say. So we have been in Dhanbad forever. We are the first generation which actually stepped up. Beyond that, then that's where I went for my very early childhood days of schooling, and then went on to a boarding school where I went on for my further studies. However, growing up with a bunch of other kids under joint family setting has definitely left very good, very fond memories of the childhood.
Okay, now tell us, because we've been reading about you, and a child who is from Dhanbad and whose legacy into coal mining business. Why he was inclined towards scientific fairs and projects, we just want to know that. And what fascinated you so much that you were actually inclined towards these things? And this is unusual when it comes to kids. Very few, 5% or 2-3% of the kids, they actually are kicked up about the fact, okay, there's a science fest. But other, like people like us, like 97% of people, they enjoy other things. But what was it? What made you take that decision, or it was just in the DNA?
It's a very interesting question, and when I look back in hindsight, of course, it was not a calculated move, although it is something that I always aspired to. I'd always been good in mathematics. I mean, there was no computer science as a very small kid, I would say. But again, very fortunate that from 5th, 6th grade onwards as well, like I was fortunate to be introduced to computers, and that's where I think the love story began. The idea of a mathematical level of that logical background, and also this idea that I was not very good at sort of the rote-based learning, which unfortunately the Indian ecosystem still, proposes. So I was never a very good student when it came to subjects that require a lot of learning and remembering and trying to go and dump out. But if it was logic, mathematics, science, geography, those are things where you don't have to remember much, but you can connect that dots and speak your mind. That appealed to me from the get-go. Now, of course, as I keep saying, that was not as a planned move. As a kid, you hardly think about what your career is going to be 20 years down the road. But I think that's where the seeds were sown. And then along the way, as I get to know more and learn more about computers, about mathematics, about this idea of logic reasoning, and so on, that's where the curiosity, sort of went on increasing. And then the science division that you were referring to, even as other kids, while everybody was busy, playing out and playing cricket and soccer and whatnot. I mean, not that I never played them, but I was never good at it. To be very, very honest, I was never good at it. But there were areas which I was always good at. And there was the science division and all, which I look forward to, and I'll create all these, crazy stuff. I mean, some examples like there was this electronic candle, and I'm talking about sixth grade, by the way. So I created this electronic candle which was using LED with light emitting diode and so on.
How many years back? Just to get into that perspective.
I was in sixth grade, so that would be what, mid 90s, I would say.
So don't tell me that 30 years ago there was a kid who was actually inventing the LED, LED lights, electric candles that now we see it's a common term. And someone who was born after 2000, they think that LED is a normal way of getting the lights in, because they won't understand. But yeah, discovering this part and actually trying that bit 30 years back, it's something that now you think it's good that you did not involve yourself into sports, because most of us, we all are bad, but we still play. It's good that you stick to your passion, your inspiration, and
correct.
Yeah.
And absolutely, and I wouldn't take claim for like inventing beans. Of course, as a kid, I mean, you're always interested. How does it work? I mean, and even in this whole idea that with a light sensor you can do a lot of things. This whole idea that you can have emitting diode which will generate light and so on and complete the circuit, or like we created this with a capacitor, which was the idea of a device which could restore electricity, like something is going wrong when you need a little bit of a power backup, like a UPS of today. Back then it was just like a large capacitor of sort. So I think things like that which just excited me a lot. Again, I've been a nerd and a geek, I would say, all along, and thankfully I have been fortunate that the industry evolved, and I was also getting opportunities along the way to keep experimenting.
Oh, that's great. So, what is again now when it comes to science? Who's your inspiration? Could be a wrong question, because in science everything is inspired by something. But do you have any inspirational personalities who's influencing you?
Yeah, I mean, again, this question often comes, but again, I'll go back to backdate myself a little bit. Again, as a young kid, you don't actually have those inspirations, to be very honest. Many of them you build along during your career, and I would say the first inspiration at that point, was a physics teacher or a mathematics teacher. Those are the ones we used to look up to. But all other industry professionals, like even now, I mean, when I get this question and we talk about Satya Nadella or Bill Gates or Sundar Pichai or Sundar Narayan, which is who is the CEO of Adobe. But if you look at some of these examples, all of them came a lot later. And many of these people that we also read about, great, physicists and great of these historians, we hardly knew about them as a kid. So I want to be honest, rather than just giving a little bit of a answer which might seem great, that, oh my God, look what his impression is. No, but as a kid, back in those days, hardly looking at inspiration. A teacher who can just tell me two more things about how does this system work. So like, oh wow, this guy knows a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, get that. That is the reason I said that it's a wrong question, because when it comes to science, everything is inspired. I'm sitting in that room. We are I think 1,000 miles away, and we're discussing everything. We've got 4 other people on this call. That's what science is all about. So yeah, I mean, again, I mean, I would want to ask you one question, which takes you back. Any message that you want to give the young Abhishek who was there in the 6th standard? So if you get back to your life, and if you if you meet yourself 30 years back, what is the message that you would want to give to that Abhishek?
I think I would say that just keep learning and unlearning as well. I mean, again, and that's a message which I've carried along, and believe me, even now to my teammates and people with whom I have coaching session, I say that even today because it's just so relevant. That you learn, you unlearn, and you relearn. As long as you're having that mindset of repeating it again and again, I think you would thrive. Because things would change, technologies would change, the ecosystem we are working in, that would change. But as long as you have that mindset of that, yeah, I'm ready to learn. That's okay. If things change, I'll learn something again. And I'm also ready to unlearn. So, whatever I learn new can stick with time. Probably that would be a good advice. Back then, I don't think I was that smart to realize that. It was just like, oh, whatever came along the way, I'll just go along, but not in a very structured way. That, oh, if I learn this could lead to this could lead to that, and so on. I don't think I would say I had that aptitude back then. I know kids these days are much more smarter, so perhaps they would take it in a more profound way and in a more logical way to see how they structure their thoughts and start building upon from a career standpoint.
So now, given an opportunity, if you have all the resources, if you have all the technology that is out there on this planet, any inspirational thing that you would want to create which can disrupt things? I mean, it can be any idea. Maybe in the initial stage, maybe you might have thought about it just 15 minutes back. But any innovation that you would want to bring in?
I'm sure, maybe a lot of things we thought at that time have all been invented. I think that's something which I would say that people are still thinking. But if I have to think of now, I think this whole idea of related to, I guess, the climate change and also this problem of power-based, devices. If we can come up with a way either to leverage our oceans, which is the last place where we haven't dug as much, but leveraging the ocean water, perhaps to take out oxygen and hydrogen to convert into electricity, or perhaps leverage the nuclear technologies, the safer nuclear technologies, I would say, to generate electricity. Somehow I feel that could have a tremendous impact, because this whole demand for electricity is going to continue to rise and rise and rise, and we have to find a fix for it with all these devices that we're not talking about, with all these IoT and sensors and devices and software creeping into everything that we do and so on. I think if we can solve for this power problem, I think it would be the invention of the century. At least that's how I feel.
I mean, you've given me enough keywords for Google to research so many things. But exactly, maybe, one day, I mean, you could be pioneering this thought, and, we definitely wish you luck for that day. And I think before we move to another question, just one thing in my mind, because we've been noticing one fact that, even in lockdown or before lockdown, there were so many startups that come in play, specifically into tech fraternity. We always discuss about this 1% success or 2% success, but nobody talks about the 98% of them. So any message to those millennials, any message that you would want, just one line objective or one line message that goes out to them, that if they're depressed, if they're not getting the funding right, if their partners are moving around, founders are going to another direction, just one consolidated message that will help our viewers to get their thoughts together and rebuild their idea again.
Yeah, I think I would suggest that take those failures as a stepping stone to success. So basically, learn from them. Don't get disheartened because you may fail once, you may fail twice, you may fail thrice, or even more than that. But every time you fail, there's always a learning, out there. And along the way, also be proactive and realistic to see that, yeah, I tried it 5 times or 10 times, 12 times, but you have to stop somewhere to identify, is there an alternate approach that I want to take in whatever you're trying? It could be in your startup, it could be within your organization, it could be in your leadership traits. But this idea of agility and recovering faster and improving upon is the key message I would like to leave to the millennials.
I mean, that's an interesting thought, that, idea of agility. I mean, very few people talk about the agility, and agility is the most important factor in anything that you do, be it a sportsman, if you're a professional, you have to prepare yourself to that situation. And that's how you become an agile person. I mean, it's a good thought to discuss about. I think 10-15 minutes are not enough. I definitely say so. But we have another question, and to discuss this bit, we have with us Mr. Stephen Sequeira, who's the director of Enterprise Business Lenovo India. So I would welcome Mr. Sequeira. So Mr. Trigunait and Mr. Sequeira, just a question from a humble person who doesn't understand tech more than mobiles and laptop. That's about it. What are the IT challenges faced, by an organization in 2020? Mr. Trigunait has already answered this in the earlier part in a very crisp manner. What is your take on this? And then maybe you can discuss in detail with Mr. Trigunait.
Yeah, so I think the challenges today for people are too many for work from home. I would restrict myself, from the technology point of view, or from being from Lenovo, from the PC world. I think when you talk about work from home for employees, it is, I think, seamless, smooth working and mirroring of the office environment. Ideally, an employee would like to have a office which is at home, and all these accessories and with a good device at home. At the same time, I think there are issues like security. When you have employee working from home, both from the employee's point of view as well as the organization point of view. To name quickly, for example, if the employee is working on a confidential report, or he's on live on the screen, there are various things like today I'll tell you thing like for example, a camera can be hacked. Okay, and I'm sure Abhishek can talk more about that. Or if an employee is suppose working from a cafe, a public space, and you can have somebody peering over his shoulders and looking at confidential data or a report. And there are so many vulnerabilities which can be hacked. And today, let me tell you, Rishikesh, and I think again Abhishek will vouch for it, security of end devices is the most critical and top of the mind for a CIO. And at Lenovo, I think I'm glad to tell you that we have a lot many offerings, and we can actually go on talking about it. But just to again mention a few things like Abhishek from CIO's point of view, I think we have an offering called Lenovo Device Intelligence, which is basically a digital experiencing monitoring tool, an AI-enabled tool. It helps to predict failures in advance. It helps to analyze and give a proactive alert to the IT team of the health of the devices of the employees. So it helps the employees as well as the CIO's team. For example, for the employee, he doesn't have to reach out to the help desk every time. And from the CIO's perspective, it relieves his IT team from in the mundane work, and this team can focus on more strategic activities. Whereas this tool gives you all that, and resolves at least 50% of the problems, and increases the uptime and reduces the downtime cost, etc. So we can talk about so many, challenges and of course solutions for it. Yeah, over to you, Abhishek.
No, I think you covered most of them, Stephen, fairly well. And this whole idea of the remote, and a distributed workforce has its own set of challenges, beyond just the machine, and security, of course, is top and paramount, where we want to make sure that people are having a seamless experience, but yet in a very secure way. And the seamless part, can take multiple dimensions, all the way from connectivity, from security, from this whole idea of being interconnected with, let's say VPN, when you're in VPN and you're out of VPN. How do we sort of continue to provide a seamless experience? Similarly, we also have been hearing from our workforce, and we've been working with them to find solution about power situations, or ancillary devices that they need, whether it's as simple as a mouse, which during COVID time, even shipping that was such a big challenge. Of course, we're getting lucky now. To replacing the laptop. I mean, something went down. Now we have to replace the laptop. What do we do? How do we ship the old one back and the new one in, and all doing in a very secure way? So I think the challenges are endless in this whole distributed workforce paradigm.
Yeah, I think at this point of time, Abhishek, you picked up a very good, point. I think the managing the entire, maybe the first the life cycle of the product, and also managing the assets which are today distributed. Like earlier, for example, you have like 5,000 or 10,000 employees, and they are spread over all across the country today and working remotely. And again, we have offerings like today completely managed device, a device as a service, and we bring the device, we right from the early configuration stage, we can help you from the configuration stage to imaging, factory image, fitted image, and then deployed, managed over the entire cycle of the product, including like a premier support, we give you priority service, and then the retrieval of the product, where this basically now today disposing an electronic item is a big thing.
So it was my pleasure. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Sequeira. Thank you for your time.